This conference will now be recorded.
Recording is on and we are set to go.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to call the Chesterfield Township Committee meeting on May 22nd, 2025 to order. Can I have a roll call? No, flag salute followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My apologies for a delayed start. We did have a working session that went longer than expected, but we do have a lot of important items today to review and discuss. So before we get started, can we have the sunshine statement and roll call, please?
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting has been given by filing written notice with the Township governing body and the Township clerk, mailing written notice to the Township's official newspapers and the Township website, posting written notice on the official bulletin board in the Chesterfield Township Municipal Building, and providing notice to all requested same. Ms. Botcher? Here. Ms. Hughes? Here. Ms. Codestale? Here. Mr. Litt?
Here.
Mr. Doherty?
Here. Thank you. Are there any agenda matters requiring recusal?
No.
Taking none. Moving on to section 4, approval of minutes, a May 8th regular session and the executive session.
Executive's gone around.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the May 8th regular session, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And once you do get the executive sessions, please review and sign. Moving on to section 5, can I have a motion to open it for public comments?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And just a reminder, this does not have to be on items on the agenda. This can be any item that the public wants to talk about or like to address to the Township Committee.
Jay Gaffney, 8 Marjoram Road. And I'd just like to mention that my wife and I have been residents for close to 27 years. We wish to express our disappointment in the information or lack thereof given to homeowners about township projects that affect the quality of life for its residents. When we heard through neighbors that resurfacing Marjoram Road would be happening, we were happy about it since it is in need of repair. But we're surprised to hear that the character of the road would be changed by widening it. Chesterfield's master plan focuses on maintaining Chesterfield's rural character by limiting development, keeping farmland, being environmentally friendly, as well as designing walking areas such as Charlotte Rogers Park, Old York Village, and Fenton Lane for all to enjoy that rural character safely, not in the roadway. We request that the committee honor that plan by not widening Marjoram Road and keeping the shoulders narrow, thereby maintaining the quality of life as it exists now. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jamie Koenig. I live at 63 Marjoram Road. I just want to express my concerns regarding the Marjoram Road expansion project for repaving. I've been living there for almost 8 years now, and I intentionally bought this property solely for the outdoor spaces surrounding my home. I wasn't made aware of the road widening project until just before the last meeting when a neighbor informed me of the proposed plans. I'm unsure why the residents of this road weren't notified in advance. The township's planning to widen the road almost 10 feet well into my property and removing many mature old trees. Without notification, a company came out to my property in the last couple weeks and cut down a good portion of a tree in my front yard, removing tons of large limbs and branches to install a new telephone pole. The pole is well into my property line, and they left all the branches and limbs with the mess behind to be cleaned up. I'd like to have the township consider alternatives to the road expansion project for repaving. There are families, couples, seniors, young adults, all sorts of people that live along this road who enjoy the quiet country landscape that it provides. With more and more development taking place all around us, we feel that it's extremely important to continue to keep our open spaces and farm-like setting on a quiet country road. I personally walk my 3 dogs along this road regularly, and I'm already frustrated by the amount of vehicles that speed down our road. There are residents that live here that ride their bikes, walk their dogs, or just enjoy walking along our beautiful road that has been quiet and rural all this time. Widening the road this extent only increases the traffic, increases the speeding, and creates more noise with traffic, elimination of trees, and negatively impacts the diverse environment and wildlife of our area. Please consider my thoughts as a very concerned resident who does not want to see this project take place as the current proposed plan. I'm totally for the road being repaved and a slight expansion if needed, but I'm strongly opposed to the current expansion proposal, and that's all I have to say.
Anybody else?
Good evening, council members. Mayor, my name is Harold Dauncey, 59 Marjoram Road. I graced you with my presence at the last meeting. Tonight, I just wanted to follow up with a few things. As the last 2 residents have stated, I vehemently oppose the widening of the road for a lot of reasons. The noise being one, the speeds are going to increase, the habitat that's going to change, all of those things. And over and above that, looking at Chesterfield is one township, but it's basically 2 entities. We have the ag side and we have the receiving side, and each one has its own distinct characteristics. Changing this road so that it more fits the opposite side goes against the reasons we purchased our home, the reasons we wanted to live on the ag side. Like the last resident said, I chose my house because of the rural nature that it is. I have land around me. I have farms around me. I love that. And I moved from where I moved for that reason. I consider myself very lucky. I looked for this home for a year, and finally, actually, my wife found it, and we got very lucky. We feel blessed to be able to live here. We just don't want it to change. And I know the crux of this, or the driver, seems to be pedestrian safety and bicycle safety. But I can tell you this, I believe in my heart that if this road is 22 foot wide and you lower the speed limit to 25 mile an hour and you put some GVW limit signs on the ends for the big trucks, you're going to do more for us than making that road 28 foot wide. And if you would please consider that. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Steve Hazen, 447 Main Street. On the HPC volunteer that we talked about at the last meeting, I was wondering if that's going to just be historic district residents, or are you going to open it up to the whole township? Because I personally don't want anybody that doesn't live in the district contributing to what I have to follow if they don't live in the district. And second, in doing research, for your home to be considered historic, 60 to 70% of the square feet have to be historic. But you do realize that over the majority of the houses in the historic districts aren't historic. So if the majority of the houses in the historic district aren't historic, how can you even have a historic district? So I know you're talking about moving the zones and the boundaries, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, and as to the neglect, that's why you have a planning board. Don't you trust them? The planning board could have 3 people specifically in charge if it's in the historic district to look at it, to make sure that it conforms to guidelines. We have to suffer through two different boards, Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Board. 95% of the township is not in the historic district. They don't have to put up with that. So it's just an extra burden on the residents that Dominic said that they should get notices of the ordinances are going to be redone. Well, when this was first formed, there was no HPC. It was the planning board and the town council. That to me, putting these ordinances in place, unlike Marjoram Road where they saw gas lines out and telephone poles moved, we didn't see the ordinances. So we weren't informed. And to me, that'd be like a variance. There was no historic ordinances for 340 years. And then you go and it gets formed. It seems like we should have gotten a notice right then because that's a variant from what was in place. And to do that, you have to notify the neighbors. The neighbors in this case is the historic district residents. So I appreciate you're trying to look at the ordinances, but they were formed on cardboard. There was no solid concrete foundation for these ordinances even being instituted.
Anybody online?
No.
Can I have a motion to close public comments?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to section 6, ordinances for introduction. Ordinance 2025-06, an ordinance amending and supplementing the chapter 110 of the Code of the Township of Chesterfield entitled Fees. Can I have a motion to, open it for public comments first, right?
No, this is introduction.
Just introduction, okay. Can I have a motion to introduce? It's not for adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And
Public
this
hearing will
includes-
be at the next meeting, June 12th.
And this includes,
What's that? No, this one has two. June has two. So yeah, June 12th.
and here the fees includes the fee for the credit card payment and what else
Yeah, the stuff we discussed last.
time? Yep. Okay. Moving on to ordinance 2025-07, an ordinance amending, revising, and supplementing Chapter 4, Article 5 of the Township Code entitled Budget Advisory Committee to create Financial Advisory Committee. Can I have a motion to introduce?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much for this. We do want to have a financial advisory committee. And I think one of the things we are trying to introduce in this is also to have a financial advisory committee of members with different tenures, where some people will serve a longer term compared to the new ones who join every year fresh. So that's the way we want to have the continuity with people who are experienced and who are part of this for more than a year, versus we also want to get fresh new residents who want to apply and be part of the financial advisory committee. So I thank you again for.
Well, I haven't made that change, to be quite honest. I know it was something you wanted to bring up, but I figured it was something they should discuss as a committee. And if you want me to amend what all I've done right now is basically taken our budget advisory ordinance that we already have on the books, and I've changed the name to the Financial Advisory Committee. And that when we first put the budget on it, advisory committee, it was just an annual thing, whoever was interested, and I've kept it. And I know you're concerned, so Mayor, so I don't know if anyone else wants me to change it, have
We
terms.
had agreed last meeting when we discussed it generally that it was going to be just everybody would have a 1 year, so it would change every year, just like the budget advisory does. So you
I
say you
did,
want-
yeah, I did discuss with a couple of folks, and one of the things that we wanted to do is I want the knowledge to be retained as much as possible. At the same time, I want new people coming in. So some people who have been there for 1 or 2, I would say, years, do have the knowledge and have a better understanding of the budget than somebody who comes in and joins for the first time, because it does take a while to understand public accounting, public, the way we do public budgets. So I do feel that the people who have spent some time and have acquired that knowledge and are willing to serve more than a year should continue. When then we should also have new people. So that was something I wanted to introduce. So maybe we need to discuss that and how we want to do that amendment.
It's a good idea, but I wonder if it requires an amendment. I wonder if that can't just be accomplished through the appointment process, where the township committee is appointing some of the same people, but replacing some people.
We've kind of done that with the budget advisory.
Right, that's exactly what we've done,
asked
yeah.
a lot of people to stay on for a year or two
Right.
because they have experience.
And I think it's worked well. I don't.
Yeah, I was trying to make it very similar to like we have the Environmental Commission or like we have the others. So since we are going to now formally recognize the Financial Advisory Committee, I wanted to follow the same structure and the same pattern that they have. Like if you go to see an Environmental Commission, there'll be somebody for 2 years, somebody for 3 years, somebody for 1 year. Same thing will happen in the Planning Board.
I guess
So that's the same format as what I have.
Well, I think they all serve the same. It's just that it's
staggered.
staggered when they come off.
Come off, exactly.
I kind of can see both ways of doing it.
The only the only issue I see is that you guys never have an idea as to how many people you would like on the committee every year, and you're always very open, which is good, to as many people maybe sometimes that want to help. But if you do it how you are suggesting, Mayor, I think you would have to actually set a number of people and then stagger the appointments that way. Like I don't think you can just keep it open, and then how do you figure out who's got the 2 year?
So can we not say minimum 5 members, out of which 2 have to be 1+ years, and the remaining can be this thing, or minimum 3 members?
You could do it that way.
I just wonder if that overcomplicates things. And I hear what you're saying about the Environmental Commission, but I feel like the model we should be using is the Budget Advisory Committee, because I think that's why we wanted to create the Financial Advisory Committee, is because the Budget Advisory Committee was working so well. So I'd love to mirror that and accomplish what you're saying, because I think what you're saying is a really good idea, but I think we can accomplish it through just the typical annual appointment process at the reorg.
I'm kind of in agreement too. I mean, I think that we could leave it the way it is, and if next year we want to kind of codify it more the way you're saying, we always can do that. I mean, it would be an amendment to the ordinance, I recognize, but it really is working well the way it is. So.
I just want to be clear that how I drafted this is that the Financial Advisory Committee is the budget.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just now it's called the Financial Advisory Committee, and it has a whole year's worth of work, basically.
Got it.
And I've increased the number of meetings. Again, it's something if you guys want to change. I just went from 3 to 6, thinking if you got a whole nother half year, it's probably another 3 meetings.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I just threw that in there.
I just feel a little more comfortable saying that we should. For some reason, I feel that it's better, since we're already saying it's going to be 6 meetings, then we should have people who are going to commit for that period of time, right? I don't want to give that impression that you're there only for 1 year. That's the challenge I face. So if I'm going to put somebody in there for a period of 3 years, the expectation is that person is going to make a commitment, that resident is making a commitment for 3 years. And then there could always be a case that, for some other reasons, unforeseen reasons, that person has to resign. But if we are going to appoint somebody for a period of 2 or 3 years, then that's what we need to do. And if you just keep it for 1 year, it doesn't, that person at the end of the year can say, okay, no. And then you have 5 or 6 new people, and then it comes back to us trying to educate them all over again, as against slotting them in the right, I would say, right, taking that commitment right at the beginning, so the efforts are not wasted. That's my thought process. And if it's not too much of a change, we rather do it now than try to do it as amendment later.
I guess I've seen close up on how difficult it is finding volunteers like for the HPC. I don't want to intimidate anyone who might otherwise be inclined to join to look down the barrel of a 3-year commitment. If ultimately it turns into that, I think that's wonderful. And I think that's a laudable objective, Sri, what you're saying. But I worry about just finding volunteers who are prepared to make that kind of commitment too. I think that's an issue as well for me.
Well, we have some volunteers who have been here for 2+ years. So we already have.
Right, through the existing annual appointment. Yeah.
I mean,
So
3 of the
I
people
don't
that
see
are on
that
this
as a
agenda.
problem the way you're pointing it out.
Have
Right?
you had any
Because
conversations with the members to see what they feel about staying on the committee for that long, or how is
some of them are interested, some of them I know are not interested. So, but we do have new people who are interested
Right.
at the same time. So at this point in time, we do have 5-6+ people who are interested. And some of the existing ones, some of them are new. So I did not ask anybody whether you would like to stay for a 3-year term or a 2-year term. But in speaking with people, this thing, I feel that there are people who are knowledgeable who would like to continue for more than a year. Then there are people who are fresh who would like to try it for a year at least.
Yeah, but I think the people who are knowledgeable have done it so they feel comfortable committing. I mean, I feel like it's worked for us with the budget advisory because we have had, I think, always, as long as I can recall, since in the beginning, had 1 or 2 people who have stayed on for a few years, so we've always had a kind of a mix. So,
feel asking them? I mean,
Or maybe then put it the other way around. If I agree with, if you don't want to take a commitment or something like, every year we encourage the existing members or some of the existing members to continue, and we say that we'll add maybe 1 or 2 new members. That's another way of looking at it, right? So if the existing members at the end of the year feel that they want to continue to next year, they continue, and then for those who leave, we add the new members.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think then you're kind of reaching the same objective, but we're doing it organically, which I think has worked. I think that's
so instead of booting out people, we let them, or placing them in a 3-year commitment. We rather, I think then that's the language we'd like to put, right? Ask the existing members to continue, and if they don't want to continue, then we.
But that's the
do
language
that
that
now.
kind of is in it now, right? Because it's sort of based on the
No,
way.
existing language is at the end of 1 year, you're dissolved. You're no longer on the company.
But they can stay on. They don't. It's just they're serving a 1-year term. They don't have to leave off. That's how I
It
read
happens
it.
that every year we reach out to the ones who have been on there and see if they wish to continue. And then if they don't, then we put something out there stating that we've got, some vacancies open.
Okay, as long as that works, then
It's
then I
been
think
done
that
that way
serves
every
our
year.
purpose.
Oh yeah, no, I don't read it that if once you served, you can't come back on at all. That's not how I read it. No, that they can continue as long as they're interested, which is how it's always been with budget advisory.
Dominic, is that the language that we have, in your opinion?
Yeah, it doesn't prohibit them from coming back. It delineates a term as 1 year. Yes, technically the term ends at the end of December, but it doesn't prohibit the committee from asking them to come back on the following year.
So then the appointments next year, if I choose to be there, going and let's just say I'm volunteer in year 1. At the end of year 1, I want to continue in year 2. Do I have to submit a form and application again? And what happens if the township committee then says, you know what, I don't like your recommendations. I don't want you to be on the committee.
It's the township committee's prerogative.
So exactly. So are we going to follow that process, or are we going to say, by the rule, we want to give that person an opportunity to continue? If that person decides not to continue, then we look for somebody else.
That's typically how we do it. So we reach out to them via email or phone call or something or other, and we'll get a response from them one way or another, either yes, they want to continue or not.
I think I sort of feel like it's it's working. Why change it? The one question I have is you have on this on the agenda here people, but this would my understanding is that they serve a calendar year from December to December. So these people wouldn't start until the next budget cycle?
No, this year they are going to start. Uh, right now, what's happening is for 2025, the Budget Advisory Committee is continuing as a financial advisory committee, with the exception of anybody who would not want to continue. So there are one or two members who do not want to continue. So we do have replacement members in place.
So these people would serve until the end of
this year.
2025,
Mhm.
and then we'll pick new ones. So it's sort of different.
So yeah, if they decide not to continue, then we'll pick new ones.
Okay.
Okay, I think that works. Moving on to section 7.
Did we do a
Oh, we
motion?
need a motion.
I'll make a
I
motion.
think
to
we already,
Did we?
we did, right? We did a motion. We just had a discussion.
I don't, hang on, I'm looking at the wrong agenda. No, we did not.
I'll make a motion that we introduce ordinance 2025-07
Second, just to be clear, as written.
as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that'll be June 12th as well.
Okay, moving on to section 7, resolutions. Resolution 2025-5-8, a resolution authorizing the purchase of one police vehicle under the NJ State Contract, #20 Fleet 01189. I know, Rebecca, you did send us an email with the current fleet.
Yeah, you can
Yes,
thank George for that. He sent it to me earlier in the week. I
Perfect.
just wanted to make sure that we all had it as we have this
and
discussion.
perfect. And the only thing that I know, and I just wanted to state is last year we did approve a vehicle, but last year we did not buy a vehicle, is my understanding, and we are buying that vehicle this year. So I'd like the police chief to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, we did not purchase a vehicle last year. I'd like to purchase one this year.
Purchase this year. Anybody, any questions on this?
Yeah, so I'd like to understand, I mean, we have the list of our current fleet. They all seem to be, pretty new vehicles. I think the oldest was 2019. They all seem to have reasonable amounts of mileage. I guess I'd like to hear from you, Chief, what the need is for a new vehicle before we make a decision like this.
Well, I don't know. I mean, yes, you're right. We have vehicles that are, from 19 and more current. I don't know that I'd consider a 19 as new. I mean, that's 6 years old. That's out on the road every day. So I don't see that as new. Other vehicles, some are reasonable, but you got others that are in the 80s. So, we purchased a car now. It's going to take a year to get here. We don't want our fleet to get too high in mileage overall. I mean, we have a good program historically that we've used of one vehicle per year. That's done us very well for as far back as I can remember. And we really haven't deviated that much. And I really don't think one vehicle per year is asking too much. These are base vehicles. There's on state contract. There's no fluff. We're getting them as is, bare bones, and we're trying to keep costs down by reallocating equipment from older vehicles into the newer ones. We're doing our best in that regard, but a police car is a critical piece of equipment. I mean, that's what our officers rely on to get to and from every single call. And even when they're not on calls, what they rely on to be out there enforcing traffic or, interacting with the community. It's critically vital. So the need is there. I really don't want to stray away from that. We're already 1 year away from it now. It will take another year to even receive it. So that's why I'm asking for your support with this.
Well, I know that the reason why we did not buy a car last year is because we had sort of agreed we were going to go with more of a 1.5 years. So it wouldn't be every year anymore. We're going to try and space them out more. That was, I think, a discussion that we had, and that so that's one point I want to make. And I don't know how we do that because we're talking about a year and a half rather than every year. But I think, and the other thing is at what point do we get rid of these older vehicles? And what are they used for? Do you know what I mean? Like, I get your point that, and I think it's very, very valid that our police officers deserve newer vehicles, that they don't have to worry about breaking down, that they're used every day. But, we have right now on this list 10 vehicles. So, you know, what, so could, because, I know older 123 or 137,000 miles on a vehicle, that's probably more maintenance than a newer one, right? So at what point do we get rid of the older ones?
We are getting rid of the older ones.
Okay.
Each year we get rid of, we try to get rid of one a year.
Okay.
We've been on at least a get rid of one a year program for at least since I took over, since 22, maybe even further back. I can't really speak for that, but at least since 22, we've been on getting rid of one a year. This year we've moved two.
Okay.
So two have already gone out of our fleet this year alone.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Chief, what happens to the vehicles? They're reassigned or sold, the old vehicles that we,
typically we auction them online on GovDeals.
Deals.
okay. So have we considered looking into EV or hybrid vehicles ever?
I could tell you that I've had exploratory conversations with law enforcement in the county. It is not entirely embraced. Other agencies that have looked more into it, more in depth than we haven't spoken highly of it. I don't know that we want to be on the forefront of that endeavor. I have not heard good things.
I appreciated you circulating the information, Rebecca, and you putting it together, George. I would like to take a little more time offline to better understand that information. So, Chief, if you're open to it, I'd love to meet with you between now and the next meeting and just get a better understanding.
I would say for myself, I'm okay with, because we did not buy one last year, that we're sort of in our, what I see to be as our kind of our new. So I'm okay with going ahead with this one because I don't want it to have to be 2 years that we don't buy something. And if we wait too long, to the chief's point, there's a long wait time, correct, for these. So I don't want to put our officers in a position of having, because you do look at, because we didn't buy one last year. So I'm not saying against what you're saying, Matt, but I also don't want to wait too long before we go ahead because we didn't buy one last year. But I am thinking going forward, I think we need to come up with a mechanism of, do we need one every single year, or can we, but for this year, I think we should, personally, I'm speaking for myself, go ahead rather than put them at risk of waiting too long.
I'm sorry.
No, to me, the year and a half, 2 year, it seems kind of arbitrary. I wonder if there's a better guideline that we can use going forward of to determine when we actually need to purchase a new vehicle too. If it's, and to be honest, I don't know. I'm not an expert if there's some other indicator that other towns use, but I mean, just to say a year and a half, we need a new vehicle, let's put that burden on the taxpayers. I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing to do. I also think that as we have this conversation, we need to really consider our budget and our purchases as a whole. I mean, we did just purchase a new construction vehicle. I think there's another one coming up soon. We did just purchase a new ambulance. We are in talks to purchase a new street sweeper, and I understand it comes from, different accounts in different places, but it's a lot of really big purchases that we're making. And we do have a fairly updated fleet. And while, of course, the safety of our officers is top priority, there's nothing more important. If we can, push this purchase to a time when we could better balance it with our other purchases, I think that may make sense too.
Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but there probably more than say there is with a personal vehicle, because these are on the road there's probably a certain amount, and they do the same sort of driving around the township. Probably more of a consistency there than there is with, say, my car, as to how much use they get per year, correct? Or am I wrong about that?
The wear and tear is
Yes.
definitely harder on our vehicles than
Yes.
the personal vehicles that we all operate. The patrol cars definitely suffer higher wear and tear than,
Because they're used all
regular.
day. hmm
and in addition to just the way they're operated in response mode, there's also idling hours that go into it. I mean, there's a lot of equipment in those cars that, shutting them down, then everything, things power down. They do need to kind of run more and idle more than regular cars, and idling hours are, that's more strain on the engine as well.
That's what I'm trying to, that's why I think I want to sit down and kind of to help me contextualize this, because I'm looking at the sheet you sent around and I'm kind of using as context like personal vehicles. I don't really have insight into how a police department's fleet is supposed to run, honestly. So that's why I'd love to just sit down and get an understanding about it. Obviously, if any of the four of you wanted to sit down.
I've done this. I've had this
Yeah, okay,
conversation over the years, but
And,
yeah.
the way I think what everybody's saying here is we would like to understand what makes you decide a particular vehicle is to now be retired. This is the time for it to be retired versus, saying that I need to retire one every year, right? What are the conditions? Is it the mileage? Is it mileage plus how much wear and tear I've had on that vehicle? How do you assess that wear and tear? Is that subjective? Is that objective?
All of the above.
Yeah,
And
and then present that.
there's plenty of times where our vehicles are out for service, and so now that reduces the fleet. So we don't always have 10. Recalls, they go out for recalls. It's just because we have 10 doesn't mean we have 10 to work with. Even though we say 10, 2 we don't even operate on the road. They're not patrol ready. They're not patrol capable. They're not equipped to operate on patrol. They're road job vehicles. So really, there's only 8 we really operate with. The other 2 go out for, road jobs with companies, CNG, Verizon, et cetera. They don't have the equipment to respond to police calls. So, 10, it's not 10 necessarily.
Not for the public. No, not now.
Yeah, but I agree. It'll be good to have like a 3 to 5 year outlook on, the expected vehicle purchases, just so we better understand the process and
Yeah.
kind of incorporate that in.
Look, I could try, but you can't predict the future either. We've had cars get T-boned at intersections,
Yeah.
completely totaled, and
Mhm.
you're down a car, and then it happens again, and you're down 2 cars. These things have happened in our past, so sure, we could do our best. I'm happy to have conversations, but I cannot predict what the future is going to be.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, I get what you're saying now. I've had these conversations during budget cycle, so I know exactly what might, but if other people want to, but I'm comfortable going ahead. But if you want to wait, table it till next month. Next meeting.
I'd rather table it for 2 weeks.
Let me ask you, is there some contract or LOI or something that you need to submit for the purchase of the new vehicle that's on a timeline?
Yeah, we've been in conversation with Winter Ford. They're under the impression that we intend to buy. So had verbal conversations with them about it. They understand it's our intent to buy, but that we don't have the full go until we have the full go. But
And I do want to repeat, we did not buy last year. So to my thinking, I think we should, I think we should go ahead, but
And I'm kind of inclined to go that way as well, but I do want the information.
yeah.
That's all. Not even the information. I mean,
Yeah.
more of a contextualization, so I
Mhm.
understand exactly where this fits in.
Yeah, and the timeline, if we decide to go next committee meeting, is not going to negatively impact us.
I would have to speak to my vehicle fleet officer tomorrow. I'd have to speak to him tomorrow.
Okay, but you're not aware of anything that tells us today that if we move this to the next committee meeting for approval, it's going to negatively impact your, purchase of this vehicle. You're not sure about that.
Can I just throw in one or two observations?
Yeah.
I was a police officer in my former life. I was a chief of police. I was an administrator in two towns, one with 37 officers, another with over 100 officers. Each of those towns had a plan. They had a rotation schedule that they brought in new vehicles to maintain fresh frontline cars. In one of the towns, every 2 years, those frontline cars were moved to the backup cars. The vehicles, and I think the chief pointed out, and our member of the audience pointed out, the miles are just one indicator of the wear and tear. Those idling hours are brutal on a vehicle. They're sitting with their air conditioning blaring because the officers don't want to sweat. And I didn't when I was a cop either. They go 8 hours with the light bar going. Everything is operating at full tilt and they're not moving. So the wear and tear on the vehicles is really, it's multiplied much more than the miles ever reveal. I'm a Ford guy in my personal life. These Fords that you see, the years that you see, these cars come out a year ahead of their model year. When I get my cars, I get them at the end of the year prior. So when I have a 2013, I got it in 22. So the year of the vehicle isn't really the true tale of how long it's been in our possession and in use. He didn't get one last year. I asked him why. You've got it in your budget. Why didn't you get it? Keep your fleet refreshed. Keep those more reliable cars going, because he wants to be conscientious. We had that conversation. The vehicle that he replaced last year with his new vehicle was a 2009, your Tahoe. It still ran pretty good. So we took that at my direction. We brought it over to the admin office because our employees have nothing to drive if Karen has to go out in the field, if Rachel has to go to Fenton Lane. I really didn't think it was good to have our employees driving their own vehicles for work purposes. So we commandeered that vehicle, but also that is being used by our construction department. Just a week ago, we took receipt of our newer vehicle, the one that we bought last year, right after I got here. We have foregone requesting a new vehicle this year for the same reasons the chief did it. We want to be economical. We want to help the town keep their costs down. If we've got good, reliable vehicles, we don't come and ask for them. That's what's going on here. That's what the chief's trying to do. He didn't get one last year. If we don't get one this year, by the time you get one next year, it'll be almost a 3-year window.
I don't like to see
Right? We're coming up on almost, it'll be 3 years by the time you get one in hand next year, because we would have to, again, adopt our municipal budget somewhere around April or May of next year. By the time he orders it, if there's a backlog, you're going to have a 3-year gap. There's something to be said for a rotation program where you are refreshing these vehicles. You don't get those surprises where you have 2 or 3 vehicles fail simultaneously, because then you're in a crisis.
Yeah.
Then we'll be looking for $100,000 or $150,000 worth of vehicles. So I just want to throw that out there for your consideration. I've seen it on this is a smaller scale. I've seen it a little bit bigger, and I've seen it in a department that they go out and they buy 15 vehicles at a time. There's a good logic behind rotating your vehicles. I do it in my personal life. I lease vehicles because I haven't replaced brakes or tires on a car in about 25 years. I pay a premium for the refreshing of those vehicles. It's a choice I make, but I think all of those things are involved in what the chief is trying to accomplish. And we've had the discussion, and I kind of called him out last year. You had it in your budget. Why didn't you get it? Keep your fleet fresh. He wanted to work to the town's interest. So, I commend him for that.
Yeah, and
Sometimes you
that
pay a
was
price.
sort of our, that we wouldn't buy a car necessarily every year, but he kept to that last year, and I think we need to honor it for this year so that they're not in a situation of being stuck without a newish car, given the lag time on picking these up. I really feel like we kind of worked that out with him last year, that he didn't get one, and I hate to have that repeated this year.
this is
Given.
also, this is one of the topics that discussed every year, even in the budget advisory committee, right? So this has been reviewed in depth, and the very fact that they didn't also buy it last year
Yeah.
and now pushing it to this year is all based on most economical use of our budget. So I feel that we need to approve it now.
I agree.
Not now,
No,
sir.
during
Only
public
during
comment, you may.
Public comments.
All right, I can be, I mean, I could be comfortable based on what everyone's saying. I can be comfortable voting in favor of it tonight, as long as we can still have that conversation so I understand it better going forward.
So I make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-5-8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 2020.
Is that an aye, just to make sure? Okay. Just want to make sure I had it
You got
accurate.
convinced.
That's okay.
Resolution 2025-5-09, resolution authorizing the execution of developers agreement with 118 NP LLC. Can I have
Just
a motion?
Before you move it, this is our typical developers agreement. This is the property at 118 Bordentown Crosswicks Road. That the application was already approved by the planning board. They're putting in 12 units, one of them being affordable. What I wanted to just mention was there was one additional item that's going to be in the developers agreement that you haven't reviewed. That the one that you did review, there is one item, and I wanted to bring it to your attention before you vote, and that is in the PVD zone. There's a requirement that 4% of the developable area is committed to open space. And in for this project, there's only a little over 2 acres, and the 4% comes out to 0.089 acres. It's a very small portion that was supposed to be set aside for open space. And based on how it was built out, they didn't have the area to do that. So they've asked to make an additional contribution for the 0.089 acres of open space. And we had a little bit back and forth, and I was just letting the committee know that we felt the reasonable number, and they agreed to it, was an additional $1,000 per unit, or $12,000 of contributions for additional recreation in the township open space. So that's going to be included in the agreement. So we'll be getting an additional 12,000. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. And if you're good with that, which at least I think Joe's recommended it, I'm recommending it. I think Karen and George have reviewed it and thought it was reasonable as well. So if you all believe it's reasonable, then we can move forward. If you want to have further discussion, unfortunately, we're going to have to then pull it off the agenda, move it to executive session, and have discussions under contract negotiations.
Thank you for doing
Goes
that.
into the rec fund.
Yep.
Yeah.
12K additional to rec fund is a good thing, I think, in my mind. If they are at least willing to compensate us because they cannot do the open space, and if everybody is thinking it's a good thing, in my mind, that's a great addition to the recreation fund.
I'm
I don't know
comfortable
about
with it.
everybody else, but
I'm
I'll take the
comfortable.
additional dollars.
That's great.
Can I have a motion to approve resolution 2025-5-09?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on, resolution 2025-5-10, resolution authorizing the municipal tax collector to prepare and mail estimated tax bills in accordance with PL 1994 C72. This is just regular procedure.
That's we have to have the governing body, and there's the attachment that Wendy prepares on how we came up with the rate.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 2025-5-11, resolution approving proposal from ERI for NJ FY 2026, Hogback Road Phase 2.
This is for the application, submitting the application.
That's what I'm going to ask you. Is this just to submit the application?
Yes.
Right? This is not approval, because we would like to have a discussion.
I think we already did the other one at the last meeting, but we didn't do anything for the submittal of the application.
Okay. This is for the Hogback Road one.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good.
You could probably do the next two together because they're basically the same
Same
thing.
thing. Yep,
It's for the submission of the grant applications.
grant application for
Mhm.
the park. Okay. Resolution 2025-5-12, resolution approving proposal from ERI for Burlington County Municipal Parks financial year 2025 grant application. Can I have a motion to approve resolution 2025-5-11 and resolution 2025-5-12?
And 13 would be the same as
And
it's just for
13
phase.
is also the same thing. I think resolution 2025-13 is authorizing approval for submission of a grant application to New Jersey Department of Transportation Municipal Aid Program for improvements to Hogback Road Phase 2.
Mhm.
So we can bundle all the three.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 2025-14, 5-14, resolution appointing Sean Keeney, Keeneji, if did I get that right? Keeneji, to the position of public works laborer. So I'm glad you're getting a person that you have been waiting for some time. So
Do you still have another opening, or does that fill the
Two
department?
more open.
Two more.
We have, I believe, 4 or 5 interviews set for next week. We
That's
actually got a
great.
good turnaround
That's
this
great.
time with applicants. So we're still taking them in. I think we got another one today.
Well, that's good. So it's picking up.
Yeah.
Yep, that's good. And is this person, what level is this person going to join? Is he a fresh recruit, step one?
Yes, step 1. He actually worked in another public works department for a short stint, but doesn't have his CDL. So we're going to work with him to get a CDL, but he seems to know what he's doing. He has some experience. So yeah, good positive attitude, I thought.
Good.
Good, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve 2025-5-14?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to section 8, can I have a motion to approve the bill list?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to section 9, reports and discussion. We do have the engineer's report first. So do you want to go through that, Joe?
Yeah, I can go through real quick. There's only a couple updates. Item number 2 is the Marjoram Road project. You may or may not be aware, we did take bids last week. Our low bid was from Paving Plus in the amount of $599,000. We did not submit a recommendation yet. We had the open house tonight and got some public opinion and whatnot. So I haven't submitted a recommendation yet, but the price is below the engineer's budget and the estimate that we had for the project. So we will probably be looking to recommend award to committee at an upcoming meeting.
If you're ready, or I want to hear before we vote on it, we are thinking about whether you want to share it with us tonight or at the next meeting. As you've heard tonight, and I'm sure you heard as you met with residents today, there's deep concerns in the community on residents of Marjoram about this. I'd like to hear a report from you. What your thinking is in terms of, I know you've responded to me by email and possibly you have to everyone individually in the committee. I don't know. But I know in my mind, I'm still trying to balance, the concerns of the residents that live on this town in terms of, as they've expressed, the rural nature of, but also an explanation, and I'm hoping you provided that to some of them, that you shared with me, both you and Troy, about your concerns in terms of safety and keeping those 3 feet wide, and why you feel that's a safer option. So I'm not going to put you on the spot tonight because you might still be digesting. So I'll leave it up to you, but whether you want to give it to us tonight or on the 12th or whatever, but I'd like to hear more, just because I feel like the residents deserve that. And if we're going to send out a letter, I'd like to have that kind of an explanation in it as to why we're making a decision based on balancing the concerns of the residents in terms of the rural community, as opposed to our safety, you know, we've already had 2 residents killed on rural roads in this township within the past few years. You know, what all these balancing acts are, because it's a decision I'm still wrestling with. And I'd like to hear.
Yeah, I can give you my position, and quite frankly, my position hasn't changed, and I appreciate the public's concerns, and whatnot. My recommendation is still to keep the 3-foot shoulders. I don't think that there's good enough balance to potentially decrease public safety. We know, we've witnessed bikes and pedestrians walking on the road and biking on the road. And if we're going to improve the road, it's, in my opinion, you have to address public safety. And if we're not going to put a sidewalk that's set off the road, separated from the road, and we don't have the ability to put a bike lane on both sides, then the next best thing is to provide a shoulder area. One, for cars to pass safely on a adequately widened road, and the other to provide an area where pedestrians can get out of the way if they have to, or for cars to kind of separate if they're passing each other, gives them a little extra room to separate instead of potentially one going off the road. If there's a big, I don't want to say truck out loud, but if a truck's coming the other way, you can't pass that truck. You're in the grass. And quite frankly, there should be a shoulder in case that situation happens. So my position is still to recommend award of the project the way that we designed it. I don't think you can compromise the public safety.
And I'm given to understand that if we do not put the bike path or the walking path, then we'll have to put in a concrete path that will still, it's going to be a pavement that will still be, have to be put because it leads to a public park also, right? So we'll have to put in a pavement, then that becomes the burden on the resident to maintain as against the township. So
I don't think that you're not required to put in a sidewalk or a shoulder necessarily. And I voiced that to the public that attended tonight. We could submit that to DOT, just that we're widening the road to 22 feet to meet the 11-foot wide widths, and they may or may not approve that. But knowing the potential public safety issue, I don't feel it's right to repave the road without putting in some type of concession for public safety.
And we've had 2 fatalities in the last 2 years. So that really heightens the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this will have to go to DOT if we have to revise the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know if they'll look at it favorably or not favorably without
Correct.
us.
Can we
Correct.
understand what that timeline would look like? Say we did decide to change the project.
They usually turn it around in 2 to 4 weeks, their review. It would probably take us, let's just say 2 weeks to revise the plans and specs to show them what we were planning to do in that scenario. Then it would get submitted to them for approval to go back out to bid, basically. You'd obviously reject the bids that you got. There's no guarantee you could get same pricing. You might get the same project at the same pricing these bids were, depending on contractors' schedules and all kinds of different factors that go into bidding, right? I know I have a $599,000 bid now for the project, but you may get economy of scale. You may get a cheaper price without doing the shoulders, but it would probably be a month and a half or so time-wise, to answer your question, to revise everything and go back out to bid. And if they did not approve it that way, you'd be back to this design more than likely, because they've already approved this one. And then you would have to go back out to bids, because these bids would only be good for 60 days.
So what's our drop dead date if we did want to revise the plan? By when would we have to do that?
If we wanted to revise the plan?
Yeah. At what point is it too late?
Well, I guess that's 60 days. Like,
60
when do you
days
have to
to-
get in touch with the contractor to do the specs before you lose that window?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's 60 days?
Yeah, I think they're required to hold their price for 60 days. The township has 60 days to award.
So we have a little time to discuss
60 days from when? Last week, when you opened the bids?
from 5/13. From 5/13.
From 5/13, yeah.
And you have a deadline to award a contract. For this grant. No, no, no.
Oh,
For this
You know when the
grant, you
grant was
have
awarded?
October.
Awarded in
October.
but
October. We have to award by
It has to be
October.
awarded by then or you lose the grant funds.
so that's the drop
Right.
dead date. It's October.
but
Ultimately, yeah.
but the drop date in terms of holding the price is only
Yeah.
60
days.
days.
July.
Right.
So we can discuss it in June. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Item number 4 is the Hogback Road Phase 2 municipal aid grant application that's due July 1st. So we submitted a proposal for that. I didn't go through it, but you just approved it, so thank you. That's that grant application, that proposal is for $2,500. So
So Joe, what is involved in that project?
Hogback Road.
Yeah, is that just
So we applied last year for Hogback Road all the way from Ward to, thank you, to Groveville, the whole length there, north of Ward
Is
Avenue.
it just to resurface?
Yeah,
Resurface.
generally speaking, it's,
I just want to say that because the people here, we're not widening it. We're not doing anything like that. We're just resurfacing.
no, we're not intending to widen anything. We may have to do a couple storm drainage improvements, minor storm drainage improvements related to the paving, but yes, that's the plan for that road. We're still working on a schedule with the contractor. He initially indicated early June for the rest of Benton Lane parking lot and the walking path. Item 7 is the Municipal Parks Development Grant. Again, we're using the scope of work that we applied for the local rec improvement grant that was not awarded. So again, you just approved the proposal for that. It's $1,500 to submit that grant application, which is due June 27th. And that's going to be to connect the walking path from the speed table on Fenton Lane into the park and up to the rec building. And then the only other update is the emergency generators, which is still ongoing. One is in on Reckless Town, and the other one is, I think they were starting up this week.
Yeah, I think it's
If I'm
going
not
to be online
mistaken.
this week.
Yeah,
Should be.
I'll find out tomorrow, but they were supposed to start that up this week.
And I apologize. I've been a little bit out of the loop because of my surgery, but what is the status of the gazebo on Olivia?
The contractor ordered it. He's waiting on a delivery date.
So
I
it
don't have the
still
date
hasn't
yet.
been delivered?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's delivered to the site and then it's basically done because it comes together. It's not,
But I mean, you're still waiting.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. I'll reach out to him again
Could you
tomorrow.
reach
If I
out to
can
him and
nail
just
down a
find out?
date, I will, and I'll send that out to committee.
Perfect. Yeah, because we'd like to get it. And
Yeah, I
before
know.
it gets too hot,
I'm
right?
taking way too long. I agree.
Yes.
That's all the updates I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Unless there's any specific question.
Moving on to item C, then developers recreation contribution. I know we saw that email where we want to make a change or at least have a discussion of can we make a change to the developers recreation contribution. My understanding is that we can make a change, but going forward, we cannot make a change for projects that have already been approved. But I'm going to have okay.
That's just my understanding. If that was asked to me, once it's approved, you can't.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that statement, man. It would be
What does
going
that-
forward.
how does that impact existing proposals? All of them have been approved. So the new ones that will come in.
Yeah, the two larger ones, well, the 118 obviously, and the Dream Homes, I believe they have all been approved. Dream Homes was for planning board, yeah. And that one was another one was approved like 15, 20 years ago or whatever, and it's just coming to fruition. So yeah, it would not affect them. It would be anything coming in after that.
I just think given other things that we're considering at this point, I'd like to kind of push off this discussion and look at it as a whole.
Yeah.
Some other things that we're considering
Exactly, the
asking
six.
of and looking at the cost of TDO. You know, I just feel like I want to look at this as a whole, so we're not putting too much of a burden on
Yep.
developers at once. I think I want to look at it as a whole.
I think that does make sense. I'm the one who requested this be put on our agenda tonight for discussion because when I was going through the developers agreement that we approved earlier, it just struck me as very low. And I think that, for development going forward, that we should consider raising it to be, more standard with what's happening these
Oh, I
days.
agree with you. I just feel like I want to look at, part of the reason for that is because we do ask of them to do the TDR. They have to buy
Okay.
TDR credits. So that's one of the reasons why that's low. And if we're going to raise that, we're talking about raising some other thing. I just would like to have this. I agree with you, Rebecca. I think it's an excellent thing to have a discussion about. I just would rather wait until we can kind of put.
Yeah,
all
there are
the pieces
multiple
together.
factors that we have to consider there
Yes.
from, I think that's what you're pointing out.
Yes.
Denise, that yes, certainly we want more money for recreation, but we also have to consider what the builder has to do in order to secure the rights to build in terms of buying the TDR and also, how much he or she needs to spend in order to kind of build the affordable units. So I think, yeah, we should have that discussion. I agree. And then we should take a look at it. But
Yeah.
I'm happy at least we got $12,000 for recreation funds. So I'm glad with what we got in the current situation. Anything else you would like to add to that? Moving on to the next big item that we have for discussion tonight is our capital budget. So I did see a capital budget proposal that was sent to all of us. I also got the sheet, and we have Wendy, our CFO, here to walk us through this. So two parts to the discussion. First part is items on the capital budget, and then I think we would like to have Wendy also explain to us the financial angle of how she needs, how she thinks, or what options we have in terms of financing for these items. So
Is there any way I can, I opened this, but it's like this big?
I was just going to ask, do you want to add something before we go to Wendy, Troy, and then we can ask our questions.
I don't know how you make it bigger.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
So Wendy, do you want to then walk us through your proposal and then
Thank you.
be a little more educated and ask some more questions?
Okay, I took the items that Troy had discussed and laid out in his memo and took a look at them. The easiest way to do it is to first separate out the sewer. Troy has 3 items that would be dedicated to the sewer system. That is the backhoe, the mason dump, and the pickup truck. Your sewer utility would be handling them independently. I have given you a sheet that was sent out by Karen that showed you 2 options that I see in terms of that. The sewer utility actually has money in the capital improvement fund, of $400,000, which could be used to pay for all of those improvements as it is. The sewer budget every year puts 50,000 in the capital improvement fund. This was started years ago, I think even prior to me arriving, as you're on the cuff with the prison. They do run the sewer system. They do control the sewer system. There are capital improvements that the state would authorize that Chesterfield has a share of. So money has been set aside for that over the years. It's a 5-year glance. So they've put money aside because that's not necessarily something that's easily anticipated by Chesterfield. That being said, we have gotten the latest 5-year thing. It is being raised in this year's budget. So I think that money would be available to do it. That is not, that means you're paying for it overnight. You write a check, it's done, you purchase your equipment. That's not, but you're purchasing equipment that can be purchased over time, can be purchased as a capital item, and spread out for the length of time that that asset may last you. So the other option that I've put forth is to adopt a bond ordinance that would allow the equipment to be purchased and then would allow time to go through as we sought to see if there were any unexpected expenditures that would come out of sewer. If there were not, I would consider that a 3-year window. After 3 years of introducing a bond ordinance, I have to look to see whether I'm going to borrow money for that ordinance. That can be in the size of a note. And we could start to raise the money in a budget and just slowly start paying it down over the course of the next years of the sewer system. So I'm hoping you're following that. I have laid it out clearly in the memo that I sent you yesterday as to what I envision. So it gives you a little more flexibility. So what you would do is you'd adopt a bond ordinance that would allow to purchase the equipment that with what was previously said today would probably take up to a year to arrive. And give you more time to see how you would want to fund it. Ideally, we would have no emergencies. We would raise it in the budget. That would mean that you're not borrowing money. You're not paying interest to an outside entity. And in time, you've gotten the equipment you need for the service. You've slowly paid for it over a couple of years. And in the end, the sewer owns the equipment. It has no debt. I did not point out, but I will for the record, SOAR at the moment has no debt. The last of the SOAR debt was paid off in 2023. The last of the agreement with the prison, which was a 6-year agreement, that payment was also made in 2023. So your SOAR is sitting pretty healthy. So those are pretty much your two options when it comes to the SOAR equipment. And if you have approved the items and if you provide me direction, I could put something in front of you for the next meeting.
So from a sewer perspective, any questions? My opinion is we do not necessarily have to do a bond ordinance, but we give that flexibility to the CFO to decide at the end of the year when the equipment comes in whether we should actually go for a note and bond or utilize the money in the sewer. So I would like to give that flexibility to Wendy to make that decision. But for sewer, we do not have to,
Let me just also add to it. It would be a decision that would still come back to the committee because you would still have to make the decision as to whether or not you're looking. Yes, I have a bond ordinance. I have the right to fund it. I have the right to, because that's how finance keeps flowing. But in this case, if I wasn't just funding it, which you give me permission when you adopt the bond ordinance to do, I would certainly return to the committee and say, here it is. It's now 3 years later. I am at the point where we do have to, by law, make a decision. And I would give you the new recommendation at that point in time. Hopefully, with no emergencies, it would be a recommendation to raise it in the budget. It would be split. It would be a certain amount, I think I estimated. If the equipment, which is something that is determined by the useful life of the purchasing, but the minimum would be 5 years. So that would be the worst case scenario. It would be $70,000 additional in the SOAR budget. I do not, at this point in time, that would not raise rates. That would not impact a rate increase to all the SOAR, users.
Given I'm inclined to approve it.
So if bonded, how much principal or interest would reflect in the 2026 budget approximately?
None.
None.
No, it wouldn't be in 26. It wouldn't be in 27. In 28, we'd have to make a decision.
And then you said we have enough surplus, right, in the budget. So
Yes. What have enough surplus? You have enough in the capital improvement fund. When the agreement that I talked about that ended in 2023 started in 2017, and Karen can probably better speak to, because it was 10 years in the making of a dispute between Township of Chesterfield and the prison about the capital expenses to run that program, and that left a large unknown factor. And I think that's where the $50,000 a year that had going in, because the township was smart enough to know that even though they weren't paying it, the prison was going to be able to come back at us and say, you owe us. And that agreement was almost $1.4 million, 1.5. It had an initial payment. We paid about 70,000 a year for 5 years, and it ended with a balloon payment of 300,000. So that's why there's been a little buildup in the capital improvement fund that you could, as I said, use as cash overnight. I don't suggest that. I might suggest that if we were looking at a rate increase, if we were looking at the other, but I'd more, the adoption of a bond ordinance is just going to let you buy out the next, it's going to give you a couple more 3 years for making this decision. You don't have to make it tonight. You can have the equipment that Troy has indicated he needs and make that decision down the line if something arises and it affects it. So when I talk about the 400,000 that's in the capital improvement fund, there's also 2 million sitting in surplus, which could also be utilized at that.
How much surplus target do we try to maintain? According to you, what's a good target that we should always have for the surplus?
In the source system, I want to say that the average that I've been seeing over the past couple of years is about we're utilizing somewhere between 150 to 200,000, depending on just what's been going on during that year. So that's a large surplus.
Yeah.
That was built off of a number of factors that won't happen again. It won't be built up to that. And a lot of that was preparing for the worst case scenario in the battle with the prison. It was an ongoing fight concerning not only the capital improvement, but also the rate they were charging us. And they were trying to charge 2, 3, 4 times as much. I remember that when I got here, than you're currently paying. So that there was a lot put aside for the potential. And knock on wood, that hasn't happened. I think the relationship and just in purely how the state has been running, we have a much more clear handle. We can plan ahead and have plenty of time to make chances if you run into, some major problems over there.
Is there, I mean, I know we are responsible though for a certain percentage of
Yes.
if they need to do. So do we have any mechanism in place that they have to give us a lead time if they want to do?
Yes.
So what is that lead time?
It's all wrapped into the 5-year agreement.
Okay.
It is looked at. So certainly the more you add development, you are increasing your share. The part I'm not clear on is what's going to happen when they really explode that prison. I don't know whether we're going to lower our percentage.
I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned though if they decide, well, we need to replace a huge piece of equipment and your percentage is this, and they come to us.
They have to come to us ahead of
We have
And what is the lead time?
underway right now.
That's a 5-year lead time.
Okay.
And in fact, the situation has improved for us because there was a fear a couple of years back that the prison might relocate.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Now, because there's going to be a women's prison over on the site, their commitment is there, and we still maintain at the same proportion, which is very, very favorable to our town. And we continue to work with or continue to use the prison sewer system.
But you just said you don't know if that might
5 years.
the new prison might in some way or no.
No,
I don't know because I assume their share may be built on capacity, but it's built on the capacity that was as their capacity. If they're really going to build this new women's prison and their capacity rises, I would think our share would decrease slightly.
Okay.
Their share is increasing.
Okay.
On the same note, if they suddenly decide not to and move out of town, now we're in a different situation.
Well, but that's, yeah.
And I think that's why the surplus has gotten to where it was. It comes out of those early years where the unknown factor was just so high. It's not something we're trying to replenish. It's not something that extra money has been going into. It's just a number that's been on the books for so many years. So I'd be comfortable to buy everything out front. I really would, but I'm not sure that's the prudent step to do. I think leaving the options open is just a more favorable view right now.
Yeah, because if you force or you go into bonding now, and what happens if it's, the interest rates drop after 3 years and she's able to take advantage of it. At the same time, if something unfavorable happens or nothing unfavorable happens, then we have the money, we might as well pay it and keep the interest to ourselves, or pay us rather than pay a third party. So I think I like the idea of giving you the approval for the bond ordinance, but not to bond till you come back.
I would certainly not until no bonding happens until what passing of a bond ordinance does once you go through introduction, adoption, and we get the effective period is it allows me to issue a purchase order. As we're finding out with these purchasing of these equipment, those purchase orders aren't being paid for more than a year. And I would never borrow the money until that year was up. We look at other things, there's temporarily, where we can use cash flow to our advantage. So again, it would not at all lead to borrowing money without more, at least one, if not more discussions with the committee in the future.
So to me, it makes sense to have more options than fewer options.
For the equipment, is it necessary to buy all three at once, Troy, or can it be staggered over time? I don't know who's going to answer that.
You don't want to do a bond ordinance over and over and over again. I thought these were the items for 2025. So I believe there's other items that may come up in some other years, but I thought these three were for 25. I didn't look at that financially. I looked at these were the three for 2025.
These three items too, I'll kick in there. These three items are for sewer. Currently, we have no equipment. So everything that's done through the sewer is used with public works equipment. Sewer is in a specific area.
Mhm.
So being the director of public works manager, and the director of sewer maintenance, have the ability to utilize public works equipment for sewer, but sewer needs to pay its fair share, right? And they have to have their own equipment to do services. So these three pieces of equipment start that. Get that all up and running.
If anything, I would be happy if you can take the street sweeper and hook truck and dumpsters and move that.
I don't think you can
You
justify
can justify
that.
that. I get it. Because you won't need a street sweeper for a sewer system. Although I could link it,
So I guess we're looking at making a decision about,
the first part, the first
yeah,
three items.
going into, so it seems like funding it by a bond ordinance makes the most sense, right? Do
So
we
it's
need
like
to
this.
have a vote on that, I think?
Yeah, we will discuss the
Or just-
second part as well, and then I think we need to give
Okay.
direction.
Direction, yeah.
So the second part is the street sweeper and the hook truck and dumpsters. That is going to come out of our township budget, not the sewer budget.
Right.
And there, too, we have some options. And can you explain that?
Now, yeah, that's not as clear cut as you can see by just some of the facts I tried to say to you. But I did, once again, I took Troy's memo. I looked solely at 2025 with the street sweeper and the hook truck. Looking at that's about with a little, just because we're talking 800,000, so that's $835,000. I then went and looked at what some of the items were in 2026. I've added them in. And now I have to also look at other things other than just Troy's when we're really talking about how I would picture funding going forward. The DPW facility is one of those things that's been talked about throughout the entire year. Whatever decision gets made, and I will not make an opinion on that, there is major work that needs to be done, even if we're just keeping everything the same. And that's going to lead to some money being needed that I would also be adding into an ordinance that would cover the equipment as well. We've talked recently about the roads and the age of our roads. I know that Joe and Troy has worked with Joe on doing a little road grading system, maybe coming up with a road management plan, how we would start to conquer some of these repairs. So I would kind of envision in my head, and I did place it into this scenario, just low with $1 million. I think that Troy scares me when he really talks about the number of street miles in the town, the age of some of these roads. So forgive me for using a round number to start a discussion. So if you look at the top of what I sent to you with those items, right? And I know we only want to talk about the 2025, but when we're talking about funding, I am never going to fund one ordinance. That's not the way funding works. We adopt one ordinance, we adopt another ordinance when we need it. And then what we do is we bundle them together and we go out and we borrow the money. I gave you some information on the rates when it come down there. The rates are absolutely impacted by the size of the bond issue. And Chesterfield is small. If I were to go out with an 800,000, one, I'd worry about it, whether anybody would even bond for it. And I would picture it being at least 1% over what's market. I have had those discussions. The difference, there was somebody out in the past week with, I think it was around 38 million, and what they got compared to the person who put out 12 million, it's different. So in Chesterfield, you do want to build up these ordinance to get to the point where you can fund them. The last time that Chesterfield did a major bond issue was to build this building. And that's why I would think that the next bond ordinance would include whatever we're going to do with the DPW facilities, as well as place some money into some road repair. One of the things that people don't know is that in 2009, there was an ordinance passed for various township roads. And Troy does a lot of repairs over that since I've been here, and before him, the prior public works director. That pot of money that was put there by someone's vision to use has saved showing up every year with a bond ordinance saying, here's what we need 100,000, we need 200,000 to fix these roads, but it's also running out. So putting another million in it that would then allow us to repair roads as they need to, this is allowing him to spend 50,000 fixing a road so it doesn't get totally demolished and need a complete overhaul on out there. So I'm just kind of throwing out the varying ideas where I got to the dollar amount. I don't want to bond for under $3 million. I don't think that would be favorable to the township. So I looked at it. And those are the items I placed to where I might be. The other thing we're coming up from is that we do have a note out there. It was sold in 2024, and I do by 2027 have to make a decision whether we're going to permanently fund that or we're going to start raising it in the budget. When I talk about the township budget, we don't want to be in that position. So we are going, I would think that we would like to be out bonding by 2027. So that we can, and we would want to put as much into that bond that would help us up to that point, as well as a little bit in the future as I talk about a various road improvement amount. The reason for that is, as I said, to compile it all together. So now I'm in 2027 and I'm looking at, okay, maybe we should bond. What I added at your desk tonight was this paper. I hope you have better eyes than me, but this is your current debt schedule. And the reason I put it out there, this is exactly where we stand. It's probably not exactly, I've made a principal, but the bottom line of the $6.6 million in principal that is owed is what the balance was on 12/31/24. I've made a payment in May, so it's a little lower as of today. And I don't even want you to look at the numbers. I want you to look at the space. So we have the 2013 bond that is coming out, and that is going to be paid off by 2032. We have the 2021 bond that'll be paid out by 2028. And then, of course, we have the building, which is the 2016 bond that won't be paid off till 2046. For any bond ordinance that I'm going to do, we're going to seek to fill this gap, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, so if you focus on the right, if you go down 3 years, between 3 and 4, you can see that drop of 140,000 because the 2021 bond would be in. That's where I would start to fill in the payments. So, and keep the debt consistent. So what you're paying today is what the taxpayers are feeling today for debt is what they would feel by any new bond issue. And That is not always allowed straight by law. It may require a visit to the local finance board. It is something they approve regularly. So I don't mean to be, well, I don't know how to bond. It's more that you have to let the factors as they play out, and we would fit them in through this way. They're getting some surprises out on the bond market. I gave you some of the rates between 3.25% and 4.25%. 4.25% are you have a low bond rating, you're having a low issue, the amount of money you're trying to borrow. But that solves your budget impact, because as we fill the gray area, we're keeping the budget impact equal to what it's been. So there's no new debt on that. Now, is it going to be perfect? A lot of that depends on what you're going to do with the Public Works building. How many roads are we going to fund? How much of the equipment, because not only did Troy do year 25 and 26, I believe it goes out 27, 28, 29, 30. My friend sitting here as the police chief, in 5 years, the police typically, they're going to spend $50,000 to $75,000 on capital items, not by choice. I think our last one was the $50,000 Alco test machine. There's state mandates that come out where equipment has to be purchased. We look at recreation projects. We do have recreation at this point in time, but that may run out. So you might be putting some money in that way, the construction vehicle. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. How am I going to fund it? So I'm not sure how much more to give you. I tried to lay out some facts so you can rely on, but you're going to borrow, say, now let's look at the schedule. We solved SOAR. So let's do the same schedule for the township. You're going to introduce it the next meeting. At the meeting after that, you would adopt it. 2 weeks after that, we have effective. I can issue a purchase order for Troy. He can start buying equipment. His equipment, it's going to be 1.5 years or better before it starts to be received. At that point, we can make that, start to pay for some equipment. And now I have to say, all right, we have to start looking to borrow as to whether I'm going to fund it.
That's the question I have. If you are going to bond, say in 2027 or 2028, whatever that date is, the 2021 series expires after that, and this equipment is received next year, somewhere in middle of 2026, then how do you pay for it?
Yeah, that was my question.
That's called cash flow.
Yep.
You currently still do have surplus. That's one of the things
That's what
that
I-
surplus is used for. It carries you through the cash flow, so I don't have to borrow right now. As surplus deletes, that will get harder and harder. Once you make a decision on the DPW facility, that's going to kick off the funding. I can carry the equipment this year. I could even we could approve DPW facility improvements, and I could carry them through this year. It's going to depend on what you do with, do we have a major road problem? There's going to be other factors that are going to push when this has to happen. And that's one of the reasons I'm focused on the facility, because as we go to, and we're going to have to bond, you'd want to put anything about the facility inside it.
Yeah, well, that's a big decision that I think we need to make soon, but not tonight.
Not
But
tonight,
I'm looking at the street sweeper, especially, we have to do that for next year, required by the state. And then the hook
So,
trucks and
yeah.
dumpers. So to Shree's question, that you're talking about a lot, $825,000 we have to take. You're saying take it out of surplus
No,
temporarily?
no, I'm not
okay,
saying take
that's-
it out of surplus.
No, okay.
Surplus will not be affected
No,
by
I
any
know,
of this.
but that's what I'm
All I
saying
said
you're
is that
so
as that bill comes due, I may slightly borrow it for a little while
right. No, I know, but
to
yeah.
pay till I can get funding in place. I already have funding out
You
there.
have
There is a note
temporarily
from
bo-
2024. If I do not permanently finance that by 2027, we're going to start to raise that in the budget. I want to be in a position, I think you should be bonding by the timing of that note. And you have to decide how many items you want to put into that bond issue. What you don't want to do is have us go out and fund in 2027 and say in 2028, well, now I want to spend $4 million on his building.
get that.
I get that too.
So you said you do have a bridge loan that will get us to 2027 once the payment is due.
And if
That's
Troy were to
all.
run out and buy the equipment and I were to suddenly have to spend $1 million on a road improvement, I can do another note. The
Another
last note we did last July, I had told you this the last time we had this discussion. It was almost a $500,000. It cost us $20,000 in interest. There is an impact from borrowing money.
Wendy, we are trying to clarify. Note is your bridge loan, basically.
I'm sorry?
Notes are the shorter duration.
They are the
loans.
temporary financing.
That's
They
what
are,
we'll have to
they
do.
are only good for 1 year. They get rolled over. On the third year that they are rolled over, the principal payment, which is divide the amount by the useful life, has to be made in the budget if it's not permanently funded. That's the law.
That's the law. Okay, so that's why you'll bond by that time.
That's why I'm looking at that would be the favorable time to.
Once they get rolled over, those be combined with the new debt? Say 2021 gets rolled over.
We'll have
to
a new
the debt
series here.
Yeah, this is permanent funding. What's on here is permanent. This is already funding. This will be paid out. I condensed it. It's paid out through varying times throughout the year. I just condensed it down to show you the one glance. This is already done. You already borrowed this money. You have a legal obligation to repay it per the schedule that is laid out here. It's when we go to borrow new, I'm going to design the new borrowing around the old borrowing to not impact the budget to the best of the ability that one can. And I was playing with it a while and I couldn't get it perfect enough. I couldn't get my spreadsheet to do it enough, but I was trying to lay it out, right? So one of the things that happens when you wrap up on schedule is they're going to make me they want to see principal payments. That's what they want to see. That's how you pay down debt is principal. So that they will allow you to go a year or two, up to 3, and not make a principal payment because you show them, look, I'm going to just pay interest for 3 years. Then I'm going to make my principal payments. And all of it is designed to keep a balance to the taxpayer. It's an odd timing. Troy has equipment of, let me go back to my page. So year 1 is $800,000. We're not going to have to pay for that till, if you were to authorize it in the process, right? It would become July 1, would probably sometime around the 1st of July would be available to a purchase order to be done. We're not going to have that equipment before July 1 of 2026. Now but now there's new items in 2026.
So do we have any other options for this? I mean, we have to get, I know, at least the street sweeper. I don't know about the hook truck and the dumpsters. Is that going to be required? We're going to need to do that in order to meet the stormwater requirements. So we don't have a lot of choice, right? So,
We need
so
both, I think.
yes,
What I understand
yeah,
is
that's what
trucks and
Troy
dumpsters.
just
We need
said.
both. He needs to
So,
use it right now.
so it seems like this is our only option.
Yeah, the reason we had Wendy come in is because I think last time when we discussed the capital budget, we were not clear of how we are
Right.
going to fund it. Now I think she explained to you how we are going to fund it.
Oh, no, I
The need
appreciate
is
that.
established. Yeah, the need has been established long back. But the question is now that we understand how this is going to get funded, do we all feel comfortable to then approve the capital budget and let Troy secure what he needs through from the sewer budget and what he needs through from the township budget
For these things, I
for
mean,
all the 3 + 2, 5 items.
Well,
for the
taking
tractor.
Denise's point one step further, so let's say we refuse to approve this, Wendy, in this form. How would we pay for it? Let's say we refuse to move forward in this way.
Well, then you're not buying the equipment.
We're just not buying it.
You're
So
just
there's
not
no
buying the
alternative.
equipment.
There's no financing alternative.
No. No.
If we're buying the equipment, this is the way.
I mean, you could go out. Troy, can you lease a street sweeper?
No, we've already had those
Yeah.
discussions. We wanted to know how it was being funded, but I think that, and I appreciate your coming because we did ask you to come because we wanted that explanation.
Mhm.
But I think the offshoot of that explanation is there's really only one mechanism that
Well,
we
and
can.
it's not a definitive answer, and that's what I as we did this again last year, that's what I'm constantly I don't have a concrete answer. This is how it would be funded. It was clear with SOAR, because SOAR has the money. You could pay for it in cash, or we can take a chance. And that's what you're doing. You don't have that luxury in the township for this kind of equipment and the improvements that are going to be needed. It exceeds the amount of surplus that you have.
Right.
We have to bond. The only question is 27, 28, 29, those couple of years that we have a little bit of play and that we can work with temporary bridge notes till then.
The problem with
That'd be a lot of,
is the size.
No, that's not a lot of interest. There is interest, but that note has a certain interest that it carries, bond has a certain lower interest that it carries. So
Right.
you'll be paying a little bit of a higher till you decide, but then that's all decided to keep the township at, I would say, at a healthy yearly payments and not unduly burden the township with a big balloon payment or a big payment. And that's where Wendy uses the skill after discussing with a bond attorney and what's the best option available to the town.
okay.
I mean, one of the problems with going further, and this is what I think, maybe should also be a factor in consideration. Are you going to need a street sweeper in 5 years? They're not getting cheaper.
Oh, I don't
If
think
you
we
look at Troy's memo from November to
No, we
May.
don't have a choice.
gone up.
It's nothing to do with the
Not-
costs. It's also the
You want to lock in the
requirement of the
price.
states. We don't have a choice.
Right. So waiting further, I don't know what those numbers would do next year.
We got to lock it in.
Yeah, we have to lock it down in terms of purchasing it. I just wanted to know if we don't seem like we have any other options in terms of ways to pay for it at this point. Any other good options?
Agreed. Any other questions for Wendy?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for providing this explanation. I know it's complicated, but I still appreciate you trying to simplify that for us. I now have a better understanding of
Yes,
how you're going to fund this. So thank you for
me
coming.
too. Yeah,
Thank you, Wendy.
yes, it is appreciated.
Thanks, Wendy.
So based on that, are you giving Wendy direction to prepare a bond ordinance? Okay, I just want to make,
Right? The
two of
sewer
them,
one
yes.
and the, yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yes. Do we have? I
Do
guess
we have to have a motion for that?
It's going to come back to the committee.
No,
Yeah, the ordinance.
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that she had the direction.
Okay.
Clear.
And then do we need to have a motion to approve the capital? Because we have already discussed that we want to approve it, right?
Is this in our 2025 capital budget? If it's not, we'll amend the
If not,
capital budget.
What happens if it's not in the capital budget is it's a resolution.
Yeah.
I put all the categories. I don't know if the exact dollar amount we're going to need is in there. So it's just a simple resolution that would happen before the adoption, the introduction of the ordinance.
Got it.
So just to confirm, you're comfortable with the 3 items for the sewer and then the 2 items for the township?
Yes.
Yes.
So I will have the bond counsel that is done by bond counsel. I'll have him prepared for your meeting of June 12th.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Moving on, I think we spoke about the Financial Advisory Committee members. The only one thing that I would like to point out is we have one new member that I see here for the Financial Advisory Committee. That's his name is included. That's Mr. Sudhir Gokhale. But I also had one more person who reached out, and I don't see that name here. And no,
Who's that?
I'll come to. Gilda is for the planning, is for the Economic Advisory Committee. She's not for the financial.
All right, you have me totally confused
Yes.
then.
So
I
I'll
haven't
walk you
received
through.
anything from anybody, so.
No, Mr. Sudhir Gokhale has applied for this thing, voluntary form. He at least sent an email saying he's completed the voluntary form.
I didn't get it.
So what's going on with the voluntary form? If you submit it online, why are you not
I get
receiving?
I usually get them.
Because there are 2
It
people who were telling me that they submitted the voluntary
Who's
form.
the other one?
I don't see his name. His gentleman is Wes Van Dan Huel, and he lives on Olivia Way.
All right, you can just fill me in on the name later and we'll just make sure he gets those sent in. So just so we have his contact information.
Okay, so those 2 are part of the Financial Advisory Committee, and then Gilda
is the Economic.
Economic Advisory Committee. So I was
Sorry about that.
not a problem.
That one I'll probably do by a resolution because I think that's a certain term. So I'll put that on for the next meeting.
Yes, that we can do that in the next one. So that's all I had on that. Any questions about this?
So these financial advisory committee members are going to meet 3 times between now and the end of the year, and then we're
Yes.
going to re-up them for next year.
Going on to section 10, administration reports. First part is the mayor. I think the point that I wanted to discuss was the safety issue and going back to the DOT for the revision. And I think we brought that up and Joe did address it. So that was my only thing that I wanted to add. Is there anybody on the township committee that you would like to bring up anything else?
Just a reminder that we have our Memorial Day observance on Monday at 10 o'clock, Rich. And I don't know if you could do maybe one more blast before you leave for the weekend, just to remind everyone. I feel like this year, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like this year it's not out there as much as it's been in past years, but that could be in my head.
I've seen it a lot. So
I
I
have-
really think that the social media,
I have not seen it anywhere, so yeah, maybe.
yeah, there's no consistency. That's
Yeah.
the frustrating part.
But that should be.
And I've also seen that Rachel's put out the request for sponsors for Harvest Festival. So that's been out there. Have you seen?
Yes.
I've seen that out there. So I appreciate Rachel doing that.
That I have seen.
I mean, to that point, when we had the rigid plastic drive, recycling drive, I know Rebecca posted reminders.
Yes.
I posted reminders too because we are on
I
the
did. I
EC
share
and
them.
we were
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
But despite that, there were residents who did have those concerns that they did not know about this ahead of time. So I know it was posted on the website too. So if there is a way to
I don't know how. I mean,
improve this process, just so I know
if you
ahead of
have
time we
people that are not on Nextdoor, not on Facebook, and don't come to our website, I don't know how you reach those people aside from signs, which
You
gets
get
to be
people to sign up
expensive.
on the website, not to
Yes.
interrupt you, but get them to sign up for notifications. And when we put something like that out, it pushes to anybody who wants to see any general announcements.
And that's something I think we
And
need
how
to
do we
figure out a
communicate
way
that?
to communicate that.
We've
That's-
said that numerous times.
Oh,
I mean,
we
it's just a
have, but
matter of everybody just, hey, look, if you want to get the agendas, everything go through the website.
But Troy actually had a great idea. I wish I could take credit for it. I'm hoping that it's something we could do that could potentially help solve this problem. But to get a sign next to the municipal building that is like a moving sign,
like the firehouse has.
yeah, that we could update, even like electronically instead of having to like actually plug the letters on, but that it could be
Very
electronically
expensive.
updated. That would say, I know it's expensive.
very
I know it's
expensive.
something that we would need to consider. But I think that it would really help with transparency. It would help reach the people who aren't on social media. We could get them to sign up. We could announce the rigid plastics or the Memorial Day celebration. So I know it would be expensive, but I think it might be worth it if we can reach the residents that we're having trouble reaching.
I think if at least you could give us a cost, at least we could look at it.
Yeah, it's a cool
right.
idea.
If you could
Probably a good
find out what the cost is,
10 to 15,000.
but at least it's something we can look at and consider.
You got to be driving past the township. That's
True.
but yeah, let's consider it if you can get us a
We just look
pricing.
one for the
You
firehouse.
can raise some money for that. That would be awesome. It's a one-time investment.
It's an ongoing issue, though.
If it can be added to the
So
capital
many
expenditure,
things that the township has
capital
done.
budget,
We
that's
we
even
have
better.
such wonderful programs. It's a shame and residents don't
But
get to know about those ahead
I've
of
been
time.
at many of these programs that the township is running, and people say, "Oh, I heard about this because my neighbor told me," and I say, "Well, we had it on Facebook. Oh, I don't do Facebook. I don't do Nextdoor."
Yeah.
So it's I don't know the answer to
Between
it
all of us,
either.
we try to get the word out as much as we can, but then there are
Yeah.
residents we can
I don't know the
always
answer
not,
to.
I did have a couple of other things from the Shade Tree Advisory Board. So as you may be aware of the tree tenders program, that is an initiative of the Shade Tree Advisory Board members and some other community volunteers. So they requested the committee to formalize the initiative just because, so it can be posted on the website and it can be under the boards and committees, just like the Green Team comes under the EC. It's a wonderful program. The initiative was started by Urban Forestry, and initially I think it was started by the Pennsylvania Horticultural
Yes.
Society. That's the background information, and they're going to be volunteers who will be involved in the program. They'll plant trees. They'll help with the pruning and maintaining trees, community outreach, which will help us preserve the tree canopy of the town. So it's a wonderful program. So how we can help them formalize it, maybe have it under the
I
boards and
agree.
committees and
We have to wait a little. Isn't that the one we got the grant for? So we have to
See.
wait.
uh,
Yeah, so we have to wait a little bit, but I think we could do that. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Is and it'll also, I guess, encourage other residents to volunteer once they know that this is something they can be a part of.
We could probably do it
What's-
by the
what's
next
the name
meeting,
of the
right,
committee?
George?
It's called the Tree Tenders Program.
Usually the end,
Free tenders program. Okay.
the end of the month.
That's a subcommittee of the Shade Tree
Shade Tree
Advisory.
Advisory, yes.
How you'd want to codify that.
Just like the green team, can we not do that?
Is it going to be
We haven't
something
even
year on year?
Formally establishing the green team, right?
We do.
We
Oh, no, we
formalized
formally
it.
established the green team.
As
I don't
part of-
know how often we want, I think we should just do a resolution stating that this is happening and that the township is supportive of it. But I think if we get into too many of these subcommittees, that it gets very confusing and you have to like keep updating in order to keep. So if we just say we're supportive of it, we recognize it as being a subcommittee of the Shade Tree Advisory Board and leave it up to them to select or, instead of having to have a membership list.
They already
think
have the
that-
members on.
I'm saying
Yeah.
that I think from our part, just to say we're recognizing it, we're supportive of it.
It'll just help them, like how we post all announcements and flyers on the website. We could do the same with the Tree
Right.
Tenders program as well. But
We
then
can
it
do
has to be
that.
Formalized for that.
We don't even have to have I mean, we've done that for SEVA. We've done that for other organizations that have
Okay.
been, we don't have to have a resolution or be formally recognized as a township organization in order to put them on their website, what they're doing as, as long as it's something that we feel is in support of the township.
And to steal Matt's idea, after they perform for a while, after they complete a certain duration of time, we can do a proclamation for them and recognize them if that helps them as well.
Okay. I'll pass this on to them.
No, absolutely. You're stealing my idea, not my execution, because I still haven't actually gotten the team here. But yeah, it was my idea.
Yeah.
I just want to say just one thing real quick. I expect in the next week or two, everyone on the committee will likely be getting an invitation from Chesterfield Elementary to graduation.
Graduation.
We live in a one school town, so I always think it's nice. And I want to say June 19th. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's June 19th. But I always think we have one school in this town. I think it's really nice and really appreciated by the school when the township committee shows up.
Did we not get? I think we already got an email, right? From the superintendent send out an email.
I didn't.
I didn't get it.
I didn't get it.
Okay, then I must be.
Unless it just went to the mayor. I mean, it is possible it
Why
just
would you
went to
do
the
that?
mayor.
Okay, I'll check, but I thought everybody got it. Let me check.
Full disclosure, my daughter's
Graduating.
graduated, so
You're gonna be there.
I didn't have to wait for the invitation.
Yep.
But anyway, I just think it's really nice, and I think the school appreciates it when the township committee shows up.
And one more thing from the Shade Tree Advisory Board, which I mentioned at the Planning Board committee meeting as well. So I know the STAB serves in an advisory capacity to the Township Committee, but when we get the development plans, they are not getting those plans ahead of time, so they're not able to give their timely input to us, which is which is very much needed. So if Karen, if there's a way to
This was
speed the
actually
process,
Okay,
'cause-
so the issue is, not to interrupt you, but the issue is the way that the STAB was formed, it was advisory to the Township Committee. It wasn't to review development applications because the Environmental Commission is already, that is their purpose. One of their purposes is to review all applications as their advisory to the Planning Board. And landscape plans and all of that portion of their subdivisions or site plans are reviewed by the Environmental Commission. So there was no mechanism for them to go to this shade tree. I would think it would be an issue, and I talked to Roseanne about this, is if you have the Environmental Commission having their own opinion on what they think should be there, and you have the Shade Tree Advisory making recommendations based on what they believe and their expertise there. And you have two different ones are going to the planning board with for the same purpose. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. But the shade tree was not formed to review planning board applications or site plan applications or anything before the planning board because they're advisory to the township committee. So it's nothing that we weren't doing for them or they weren't getting it in time. It was not in the process to give it to them because that's not under their jurisdiction.
No, it was not. I think that the conversation that was had, and I'm not involved with Shade Tree, but what this did come up before the planning board is that the Shade Tree Advisory Board has expertise in terms of trees that the EC does not. And there have been times where the EC has said things that, and to your point, I can see where this might become, is that so I think it needs to have more discussion, but I think the planning board would like to get some in, and I don't know how we would do this. Maybe we need to discuss it more.
Yeah, we need to
Some
think about
further input from those members who have more expertise in trees. So, but maybe it needs to be discussed, maybe between the EC and Shade Tree as to how it can
Between
be
EC
done.
and Shade Tree, is the environmental committee representation good enough on the planning board, or do we really think there should be a representative from Shade Tree
There is.
on the planning?
There's a representative from the Environmental Commission who works with the Environmental Commission and Shade Tree. So maybe I think there needs to be a better
And there has
process.
been, and she has asked for that from the Shade Tree, but that mechanism that you're talking about is not there. It's not in the ordinance. It's not there.
No, it's
So
not.
It just needs to be, I think it's gone to them because it came to the Environmental Commission. They said, hey, let's ask Shade Tree. But that's just not the way it's set up, so.
But I think by the time it gets to the Environmental Commission, they often have just a very short turnaround time. So by the time they reach out to Shade Tree and it's like, oh.
And their meeting is after the planning board meeting, so a lot of times it's happened after the fact.
So I think it's something maybe there needs to be further discussion about.
They always have a lot of good recommendations.
Oh, sure.
And,
Yeah, well,
have
you have
expertise, so I
some
don't want
really good tree experts on that board.
And I can tell you more often than not, most of the developers will align with the recommendations that we ask them, right? Most of the times to put native trees instead of other trees. So they should be happy to do that. Now, it's only rare cases where, we are asking we are putting an undue burden on a developer saying that, hey, you are planning to put in $50,000 worth of trees. We are asking you to do $250,000 worth of trees.
Now,
Rarely going to
I
happen
don't
that.
think this doesn't come from any of the developers. We've never had a concern from the developers.
So they
It's
will generate
more just like the
What we
EC
want.
might reach out to the Shade Tree, and then by the time they do, the planning board has already voted.
Yeah, so my point is, even it's important for the Shade Tree to know what's going in there from a landscaping perspective. And then their recommendation should make it back in time so that the developer does not go and plant the wrong trees. So as long as we
That's
get the
what we're saying.
recommendation back in time before the developers plant the trees, I think we are good. I don't think it's wise for us to hold up their developers agreement or whatever that development proposal is
We're not
till we get a recommendation
We're
back.
saying that we need to find
give their input in time. So which is what we
better communication between.
Yeah, that we should do. Certainly agree with that part. Do we have anything else from the administration today?
Just two quick things. June 2nd, the administrative staff starts their summer hours.
Okay.
Karen, tell me if I'm right, 8 a.m. to 4:15 p.m., Monday to Thursday?
Yes,
And Fridays, 8 to 12:30?
correct.
Okay, and I know what I'm working. And one other item, just so you're aware, on June 2nd, I'll be attending a meeting with representatives from Bordentown Township, Bordentown City, and Fieldsboro, and the Administrative Office of the Courts, Bordentown Township, with their new municipal building on the horizon is looking to expand the shared court and bring those other two towns in with us and Bordentown. So I'll be there to go over the terms and conditions and see what works and see what the Administrative Office of the Court approves. Right now, we pay 22% of the operating costs. So I'm hoping that we would get some type of reduction. Of course, there will be added staff, added costs. I did have a conversation with the deputy court administrator from Bordentown today, and she enlightened me on just how we fit into the puzzle over there, because there was some confusion on my part from prior experience to shared courts. Ours is run differently. But I think it's a good thing. It's better than what I've experienced previously. So I'll be reporting back to you once we have some concrete information on that.
George, is that something potentially I can go to as well?
I think so. They invited the administrators and mayors. There's I'll write to Mike Theokis and see if he's got any objection.
Oh, if you were going to go, then okay. I just feel like I've always felt like there was and I'm sure there's not. I'm sure I'm wrong.
If you come with me, they won't throw you out. So I'm sure they.
Well, maybe it'll be a good educational experience for you.
Well, that's what
questions.
I always felt like there was a better way to do this, and maybe there's not. I'm sure other people have thought it through, but I always felt like there was
the way it's structured.
Yeah, the way it's structured. So I'd love to sit in if possible. But do me a favor, if you don't mind emailing me tomorrow before whenever before you email the person you just said.
Well,
I just
I've
wanna check
already
my
RSVP'd because they gave us 4 dates.
Yeah, okay.
Looks like the second is the one that's going to work.
I just want to check my calendar for the second, but if I can go with you, I'd like to.
Yep. Actually, the way they do it is better than what I've experienced. They commingle the cases, so you don't have separate court dates. We still had to keep, in the town I was in, we had our own judge, we had our own prosecutor, we had our own court date. We just paid them for the use of their facility and the court staff. Here, they put it all together. All the court sessions are involving both towns, us and Bordentown Township. There's an agreement that we will use their judge and prosecutor. Unless we object to it, it's an automatic. So it streamlines the operation. The way they're doing it is really, the structure is better than what
I'm sure. What are their court days? Because if I can't go on the second, maybe I'll go to watch.
She mentioned it quickly.
Chief, you know, Chief?
When the court dates are?
It's
I'll
on their
follow up with you.
website. I just didn't take
Okay.
note of it.
And do we have cases generally every day or every other week? Will Chesterfield have a case there or no?
There's no, not necessarily every session.
Yeah. Okay.
I did note on their website, I don't know if this is outdated information. It says there is still no in-person court. Is that still going on? Is it all virtual? You know? Okay, because they've still got on their website that it's all virtual, so.
Not be updated.
We're not there.
Okay.
And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else before? Okay, then moving on to section 11. Can I have a motion to open it up for public comments?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody in the public?
You have to come up.
Karen, I have to have it up there so I can hear.
You have to talk to the mic.
Karen Brandt, 68 Marjoram Road. I'm talking about obviously the widening of the road. And I live there. I don't know why the people that live there don't have precedence over people that use it. I can't do this. I'm sorry.
Do you want to sit down and use the mic?
Thank you. I don't understand why the residents who live there 24/7 don't have precedence over people who bike there or walk there. I walk up and down there pretty much every day. I walk my dog. I think widening it, excuse me, is going to make it less safe. It's a very straight road. You widen it, it's going to be like a highway. And I'd feel more frightened walking up and down there than I do now. So I just want to put my 2 cents in. But it's not easy getting up front talking in front of people.
We appreciate it.
And I once again, I seems like you're digging your heels in to have it like 28 feet. I don't understand why 22 feet. It does need to be repaved. It does need to be widened a little bit. I think having the shoulder, people are just going to feel more confident rearing over to the shoulder where I'm walking than they do now at a faster speed. So I really hope this does not go through. I hope we get to 22 feet and leave it at that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just say one thing, ma'am. Most of the professionals in our town are giving their professional opinion, and that's our township. I would say it is his professional opinion because he represents a number of towns. This is one of the towns. It is on this township committee to make that decision eventually. So, in that sense, I would not kind of say that he's digging in his heels. He's trying to do a fair job here in that sense. You know, I agree. You have a valid question, and we'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Susie Mayon, 16 Chesterfield Crosswicks Road. I would like to just ask that for the HPC subcommittee activity, that people who live in the historic district get selected so they have their say to be on that committee, because I just feel that they're most impacted, just like this lady just said, that, the people that live in the area that's impacted should be notified. She's experienced what the HPC, the historic district residents experienced. They were not notified that they were going to be put in there. And at the time they created the ordinance, but the people, people behind it who think historic preservation is good, I'm one of them. I didn't necessarily vote for it, but at the time I didn't even know it was going on because I wasn't notified. You didn't even say what residents were going to be impacted. So I think just from that experience, the township should have sent these people a notification saying, you're going to be impacted. You might not think a road widening is that impacting, but to people who live there, change is impacting. I mean, all I can say from experience on my road, which is a county road, we hardly have a shoulder. I don't believe it's ever going to be widened. There's no sidewalks. When I moved in there, the speed limit was 45 miles an hour. They reduced it to 35. Doesn't really make a difference. But all I know is there's hardly any shoulder. And if I walk it, I take my life in my hands. That's just my personal experience. I don't know what it is on Marjoram Road. They probably don't have the amount of traffic as I have on Chesterfield Crosswicks Road, because, we do have a lot of traffic, but I'm just throwing that out there. But please consider notifying residents anytime you do anything impactful. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Harold Dauncey, 59 Marjoram. I just have a quick question. When you folks decide what direction Marjoram Road is going to go in, how will we know? Will it be put on the agenda and we'll be able to know to be here? Is
It'll
there?
definitely be on the agenda.
It will.
Yeah.
How will it be communicated? Will that be in resolution, or how will that?
I don't want to like promise you the world here, because I feel like when I'm playing it out in my head, let's just say the committee decides to have the plans revised, right? And just keep it at the 11, 22 feet or whatever.
Right.
It wouldn't be like a predetermined thing that we'd have a resolution that's on the agenda so you would be able to see it and say, oh, they're voting on a I feel like it would organically happen during a discussion at a meeting with the engineer. And then if there's a decision made, they would just advise, Joe, the engineer, Mr. Hirsch, to go ahead and revise the plans. I don't think you need like some sort of formal resolution to revise the plans. You would just be giving Joe direction to go ahead and do that. So
would it be your suggestion just to come to every meeting?
I mean, I think everybody wants you guys
to make this decision, I think, because of the financial of the bid number within 60 days. I feel like we would only have 3 meetings prior to that, unless we have an early meeting in July. So, but I feel like if we decide we're not going to discuss it, I think we could put it as an item of discussion. So at least you'd know. So if we say, okay, Joe isn't prepared to give us anything for June 12th, So let's not, but if we're going to discuss it the following time, that it's on as an item of discussion. I think we can promise that.
Okay.
At a minimum, we could put it on the workshop agenda, couldn't we, as an item
Well,
of
but I
discussion?
mean, even on the township committee, we've done this before. We
Yeah.
have discussion items and we put down, I mean, right here, engineers, or,
Reports and discussion section.
yeah, that we could put it on
So
there as
that would
being,
be something that we could see on the website.
I think that's fair to say.
Okay.
We would have it as,
All right, that'd be
that's
good.
not to say we'd make the final decision, but that we would have a discussion, at least updating where we stand.
Okay. All right.
Sign up on
That's
the,
fine.
sign up on the website to receive notices.
Okay.
The agenda, yeah.
right.
but
And you'll get
I
them.
think we can
Great
say we
suggestion.
put it as
Thank
an
you.
Item of discussion. on
Thank you.
the
And I just want to thank you all for the open forum we had tonight. We had a chance to speak with these two gentlemen. They were very transparent, brought the plans out for all of us to see, addressed each one of us as a resident, what we're going to see as far as changes. The overall consensus of all the residents that were there was that the road's too wide at 28. And I asked, what do we do at this point? I was told to bring it forward to you folks. So I did that again tonight. Please, I implore you to look at this hard and think of us. Okay? Appreciate that. Thank you all. Thank you.
And I would like to thank Joe and Troy for taking the time to do that, because I think it was helpful to our residents to have those
Two
two
sessions.
opportunities to come in and talk to you about their specific issues.
Agreed.
Anybody else? Anybody online?
Nope, they're there, but
Can I have a motion to close public comments?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We do have an executive session today. So
No action.
no action will be taken after the executive session.
resolution
And
5-15.
I resolution. Yeah.
I make
And
a
then,
motion.
yes,
We have to
and
make a
I
motion
think
for the
we have to make a motion to get into executive session, but we need to excuse
Yeah,
Mhm.
once it's
Yep,
passed.
yep.
once.
Pass the resolution, we'll take care of it.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-5-15.
15. Sorry. I never know when something's going to come up.
All in favor?
Need a second.
Second.
So that's just
Second,
a resolution to go into executive.
Yeah.
right? Okay, then yes, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is that in here? Is the resolution in here? Or
No,
did you
I
keep
make
that
them up
separate?
later. That's why I leave the number blank
Okay.
too.
Yeah, yeah.